giving you the insider takes and the big picture view on the Dogs. This is On the Beat, presented by Ingles, with DawgNation insider Mike Griffith and Cody Chapin.
All right, welcome in, DawgNation. I'm Kaylee Mansell with Mike Griffith here for On the Beat, live from Athens. After a loss, it's always tough, but we got to look back on the loss to Alabama. I just want to know, after that game, how has your perception of this Georgia team changed the most?
Well, I mean, I thought they were able to run the ball really well, and that was something that I'd wondered about. Obviously, there's some questions about the defense. Kirby Smart's talked a lot about that, the third down defense in particular. And you can't help but bring Ty Simpson into the equation. Yeah. I mean, he played really well. I mean, there's not a lot of quarterbacks in the country, much less the SEC, that are going to make those kind of throws, that kind of accuracy, get the ball out that quick. So a lot of it's Alabama playing really well, and some of it's Georgia just not playing well enough.
Yeah, of course, we're going to spend a lot of time taking a look back on the loss. Where did things go wrong? We'll cap it off with what Georgia got right and how do they move forward from this. Also, we'll take a look at other SEC schools, where they're at, who's still in contention to be an SEC champion this point in the season. And then we'll wrap it up with looking ahead to Kentucky. How does Georgia bounce back? What's their biggest challenge? I think it's fair to start off with the one thing everybody seems to be really upset about. All Georgia fans wondering, what was that play call on 4th and 1? Why give it to Cash Jones? Why not go for the field goal? It's been really controversial in the days since that. I just want to hear your point of view. Would you have done things differently, and who's to blame for that entire scenario?
Yeah, well, in the moment, it's actually a really good play call. If you go back and take a look, Alabama was not lined up correctly, and that's something that Georgia had seen on their scout, that Alabama was a team that did not get lined up quickly in those situations, maybe not the best discipline in terms of where they were at. If you play that play out, if Juan Gaston makes the block in the gap, it's a freshman that's played a long game, and Kirby talked about his stamina early on. If you play that play out and Gaston makes the block, I mean, Cash Jones scores a touchdown. Mm-hmm. There's nobody back there. There's nobody behind there. Georgia had the leverage on the play. The problem with it was Cash probably wasn't the back that you would have picked, but because you went tempo, in other words, you wanted to snap it quickly so that Alabama could not reset and substitute. You wanted to catch and misaligned. You did that, but part of that trade-off was you weren't able to make a substitution and maybe get a different back in there. So it was a gamble by Georgia. There was a lack of execution on the play. You know, you're asking the play to be run correctly by two freshmen at right guard and right tackle, and one of them missed the assignment, and that's what cost Georgia. Not the play call, but the execution, I believe.
Yeah, and it's easy to look at this and say, hey, they could have gone for the field goal, tied it up. I actually didn't mind them going for it in that moment, getting some more momentum, taking the lead at that point, but ultimately it just wasn't executed. And, yeah, you can look to it and say it could have changed the outcome, but there were many moments where I felt like Georgia could have capitalized on some things. There was the Talon Taylor drop pass, the Nate Frazier fumble. However, in the days following, it looks like there have been some people on social media who were wondering if maybe Gunner had gotten the first down on that call before.
Yeah.
It was 3rd and 3, small run, looked like he was short, but some people on film said, hey, it looks like he might have gotten it. Kirby Smart actually addressed this today. This was the decision to not ask for a challenge on that 3rd and 3 call.
Yeah, the only decision on that is they buzz down. They control that, and every team in the conference so far that's had tempo plays, they've had plays buzz down when they want to review it. You know, they look at it fast and quick. It happened in a South Carolina game. It happened in our game that night. It happened earlier where they buzzed down. We were trying to go tempo and would have scored, but there's no thought of trying to wait on somebody to do that, not when we feel like that's the most important play that we have in terms of execution.
Yeah, so tough call. In watching it back, I thought it was really close, not close enough. And then, of course, that leads to the play that everybody's talking about. But at the end of the day, I don't think it necessarily would have changed the outcome of the game. There were so many opportunities where they could have scored. It's easy to point to that, and I understand why fans are doing that. But I wouldn't look to that as the one reason that Georgia lost this matchup.
I mean, no, there were several reasons, but it kind of encapsulated the game that Georgia came up just short.
Yeah.
And that there was a lack of execution, and that it was young players. I mean, look, we've known from the beginning that this was going to be a young Georgia football team, and Georgia was going to have to overcome. But you mentioned the players. Nate Frazier, you know, he's a sophomore, but did not go through the first spring. He's had one spring behind him. You mentioned Talon Taylor, a true freshman, another guy. You know, they only had one spring behind him. You mentioned the two players that were playing right guard and right tackle, freshmen again. You hate to see the game come down to freshmen and young players, But when 54% of your roster is first and second year players, these are the guys that are going to have to execute. Now, Georgia got away with one up there at Tennessee. You know, you heard Kirby Smart say he felt like they didn't deserve to win. Maybe this is a game that Georgia deserved to win, and Alabama's living on the right side. I mean, you think about it. All the Tennessee fans want to know why Josh Heupel can't beat Kirby Smart, right? He's beaten Alabama and he's beaten Florida. All the Georgia fans want to know why Georgia's had trouble with Alabama. It's just kind of an SEC thing, right? I guess if you haven't been around the SEC a long time, you probably don't understand it.
So coming into this game, one thing that I was really hoping to see improve from not just the Tennessee matchup, but also having that bye week was Georgia's pass rush. It feels like it just hasn't been to the standard of what it is that we're used to seeing. I feel like Kirby Smart gets asked about the pass rush every single week and what they could do better. This was this week's response to the question about pass rush.
Yeah, it was a great balance. I mean, that's the part of the game that you look back on and I go, you know what? We executed at a high level. Like, we did not have a lack of execution on third down. We had one where we checked and they checked and we checked and they checked and we didn't quite get lined up right. But it was a front issue, not a coverage issue. And when you play in the home environment, you go back and say, okay, is there a lack of execution? No, there wasn't a lack of execution. There was really good execution in a high-level quarterback play. Give him a lot of credit. Shake his hand and say he did a great job. The ball came out before some of our rush got there. One time we didn't have our rush lanes right. Quarterback took off the first third down of the game. You know, it's like you can't let them do that. You got to execute better in those situations. But some of it was really good quarterback play, really good timing, and give them credit, shake their hand, and go get better for the next one. So we got to find ways to affect the quarterback, but we had some in there that we executed and they out-executed.
Look, I'm not trying to take away from what Ty Simpson did. I came into the game wondering, is Ty Simpson a good quarterback? And I walked away saying, absolutely, yes, he is. I looked back on how Florida State really beat Alabama. A lot of it was quarterback pressures. I thought if Georgia could get after Ty Simpson more, then maybe they come out on the other side. And when you look at it, on his 40 dropbacks, only pressured 5 times. On those 5 times that he was pressured, just 1 for 5 with 10 yards. So, in a situation where you're facing a very similar offense and a similar quarterback to what you did 2 weeks ago, there's got to be more of a presence there from the pass rush.
Yeah, a lot of quick strikes from Ty Simpson. As Kirby said, even when guys came free, he was able to get rid of the ball quickly. And credit Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb as well. I mean, they really schemed Georgia up. When you play Georgia, you know they have a lot of pressures. You know that your quarterback has to get rid of it quickly. That's a part of the game plan. That takes away a lot of things that they would have liked to have done, the short pass game, and that's why that open field tackling gets so important. You know they're going to get rid of it quickly. You got to be on the spot and make those tackles. Georgia didn't do a good job with that in the first half. Second half, though, Kaylee, I thought that they were really on the spot and kind of tightened the coverage up a little bit.
And that's actually how I felt about the secondary as well. It feels like it's the second time in a row where the secondary was nowhere to be found in the first half and facing a very similar offense. But the second half adjustments were obviously there. Alabama couldn't score. So it was nice to see those adjustments coming out of the second half, but also a lot of questions. No Daniel Harris to be found. Ellis Robinson made some stupid mistakes, but also there were some times that he missed tackles too. You've got to get more out of those guys. And I think the big question moving forward is, apart from Dalen, who's the next best cornerback that you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I know DeMel Jones played a lot of plays. He graded out high per PFF, and I didn't necessarily expect that. Remember, he got off to a slow start this season, but yet another young guy, he emerges. I believe Daniel Harris, Kirby said he thought he had a groin injury that was holding him back. That's not a spot that you want to be slowed up at all, especially, I mean, those were some really elite Alabama receivers. I mean, Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams are 2 of the best in the league, and when you've got a quarterback that's throwing dimes like Ty Simpson, there's really not margin for error. And I thought, again, Alabama executed really well. Now, the crowd was a factor. It wasn't a factor in so many false starts, but you saw Alabama had to burn all their timeouts. So when they went in that 2-minute drill late, they did that without the benefit of having any timeouts. So, again, that's a credit to Ty Simpson, but the crowd did play a factor. The defense just wasn't able to take advantage of it in the first half.
So in a minute, we're going to shift to the offensive perspective of the game. Any final thoughts on Georgia's defense from Saturday?
Yeah, I was disappointed in Christian Miller. I mean, Christian's gotten a lot of praise and hype, and I think to this point he's had a pretty good season. He did not have a great game. I thought Jordan Hall had a really good game, though. He stepped up. You'd like to see the linebackers make more plays. They were kind of caught in limbo a little bit. You think about guys like, C.J. Allen and what he's capable of. Chris Cole had the 1 sack. He's been the one constant. You want to find a way to keep this guy out here a lot. You know, I felt like Georgia did some really good things, but Alabama just did a little bit better. And, you know, it was a tale of two halves, and Alabama did just enough in the first half to be able to hold up against Georgia in the second half.
Yeah, there was no degree of luck in this game at all. They just got outcoached. They got outplayed. That's been the tale for 2 years in a row now, and it's just something that it's going to have to be accepted and got to continue to look forward. And we know that they're really good in games after loss, only have lost 2 back-to-back games since Kirby's first year. So they got to make the adjustments. It's not the defense that we are used to seeing from a Georgia team. However, they have shown that they are willing to make those in-game adjustments. So I think the outcome could have been a lot worse. But saw those second half adjustments. There's some optimism there. I do want to talk about the offense. First thing, same story. It's always been a slow start. And Georgia got the ball first, immediate 3 and out, and then you've got Alabama who's on the field for so much time. Georgia comes back out. They didn't go 3 and out on that second drive, but out again really quickly. Then Alabama's out there for a while. Then Georgia comes back and scores in 3 plays. So I think that contributed to some of that fatigue that we saw from the defense in the first half. But at this point, with slow starts, is it something that Georgia fans are just going to have to get used to, or can there be adjustments that are made and more preparation that goes into it so that we potentially see a fast start against Kentucky, which is a noon game? I think the fans could probably use a fast start in that case too.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think some of this is Gunner's inexperience. I mean, he wasn't sharp coming out. He missed on his first throw by a couple feet to an open receiver. I know he missed some receivers, but you know, after the first quarter, he really warmed up. I mean, I think he finished 13 of 20, but I want to say, no, he was 10 of 16 from the second quarter on. I mean, that's pretty doggone efficient. Or excuse me, it was better than that. He was, 13 of 20 for the game, and he started 0 for 4, so 13 of 16 for the rest of the game. So I thought Gunner Stockton picked it up, but again, he was playing from behind. I think it's hard to play from behind. This is 2 SEC games in a row now, and we even said that after the Tennessee game that, look, you're not going to make a living with Gunner Stockton throwing the ball a lot. The difference in this game was that the Georgia run game really got on track, Kaylee, and once they had that momentum, you know, they just simply ran out of time in this game. If they would have had more time, if the defense could have got off the field. The fact is, when you play a team like Alabama or another championship caliber team, if they're able to control the ball, then you're going to have to be really efficient and you're going to have to be more aggressive on offense. And I think sometimes Georgia's not real aggressive on offense because Kirby wants the personality of this team to be a hard-nosed run team that does not turn the ball over, that plays good defense. Gunner did not turn the ball over.
Yeah.
They did run the ball well, but the defensive component was missing.
Yeah, and at least for me, looking at Gunner's stats from the game, 130 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. The only thing I wish we would have saw more of is only 5 carries for 22 yards, and the losses under Kalen DeBoer, most of them have come to dual-threat quarterbacks. Yeah. I would have been okay with seeing Gunner use his legs some more because in one of the moments where he did, he had that explosive run. Now, good thing for him, he got to lean on productive running backs, probably the most consistent running game that we've seen from Georgia this far. But it was just one of those games where I felt like, you know, this is the one thing that Gunner has that separates him from what we've seen in the past with other Georgia quarterbacks, and I would have liked it utilized to its fullest potential and fullest purpose to help give them that advantage.
Yeah, he had a nice 21-yard run to pick up a first down, and he was only sacked once, so a couple of times he was able to buy some time and avoid the catastrophic play at quarterback. Obviously, you mentioned the Nate Frazier fumble. I mean, that's a big deal. Georgia had shifted the momentum. They had the ball back. It looked like the game could swing at that point. You know, but Frazier puts it on the turf at the 11-yard line, and you hand Alabama 3 points. That's the difference in the game right there. You know, you talk about 2 or 3 plays like that. You know, you talk about the drop pass by Talon Taylor. That's the go-ahead touchdown right there. That's a momentum changer. Imagine the stadium setting if he catches that pass and puts Georgia ahead. And then, of course, the decisive 4th and 1 call. Or you could even go back 1 and on the 3rd and 3 and how close Gunner was. What if Gunner gets another yard? What if that's blocked properly? There was a missed block at the second level there as well. So some of those offensive line woes that we'd seen against Tennessee did haunt you a little bit. Not to the same extent. I think we would all agree that the offensive line play improved. I don't know if I'd say drastically, but notably for the Alabama game. And I think Alabama's defense is every bit as good as Tennessee. So we've seen the offensive line improve. Not quite enough, not in time. I thought Gunner Stockton gave you what Gunner Stockton's going to give you. This is who he is. He's efficient. He's not a guy that you're going to try to throw the ball 40 times and carry the team. I mean, no one wants to just come right out and say it, but Ty Simpson is a level better. Ty Simpson looks like he can be an NFL quarterback. He made NFL throws. He made pre-snap reads. He had control at the line of scrimmage. He was able to get Alabama out of trouble before they got in trouble. Now, he also has 2 future NFL receivers. Georgia has 1 for sure, and that was another bright spot, Zachariah Branch. Now, Kirby said there were some opportunities Zachariah missed, but boy, I think about that run he had. You're at the 5-yard line, backed up. You're in the 4th quarter. You hand it to this guy, almost like Brock Bowers fashion. He gets you 10 when you really need it to get some operating room. Then you face a 3rd and 11. You're still on that must-do drive. He goes up in traffic. Gunner puts a really nice throw between defenders. Branch knows he's going to get hit, goes airborne, takes a heck of a lick, gets the first down. But then that drive stalls. You're facing a 3rd and 9, and for some reason, I don't know if it's the play call or if I don't know if it's a faulty check by Gunner, but you throw the ball on a screen behind, it goes down as a run, a lateral, but it was effectively a screen pass to Cash Jones, and you get blown up behind the line for a 4-yard loss. Now it's 4th and 13. There's no decision to be made. If you make 5, 6, even 4, maybe you think about it on 4th and 5. So, again, I don't know if that's the play call or if that's a faulty Gunner check there, but that was a really, really difficult play for Georgia. That's one that you probably circle if you go back and look at why they weren't able to get this win. Because as it turned out, when they punted the ball back, even with all 3 timeouts, Kaylee, and the 2-minute warning to stop the clock, you had 4 clock stoppages. Alabama was able to pick up 2 first downs and run out the clock.
I want to go back to something that you said about the offensive line, because I do think this is applicable to how Georgia can get better moving forward. I think that just comes with time and experience when it comes to the offensive line specifically, because in those first 3 games, it was 3 different starting rotations for the offensive line. They're trying to figure out who can do what. When this person goes out, can we put Bo Hewley on this side? So I think it's just them getting familiarized with each other. I thought the play was improved overall, especially going up against a tough defensive line that Alabama has. So I think with the Georgia offensive line, it's just baby steps with growth and having that time out there together, and that's something that we're going to see them get better at towards the end of the season, just getting connected with each other more and understanding tendencies more. So it's going to be a marathon for those guys, not a sprint, but they do look like they're on the upward trajectory.
Oh, there's no doubt. And Kirby said that today. They tried some things. I think he feels like they found something. Now, you got to get these guys conditioned, to play this amount of snaps and this type of game at this type of level. You remember, they're freshmen, so there's still a bit of an adjustment going on, but I think Kirby feels like he found something there. Now, when he indicated that, it kind of made me think, well, maybe Ernest Green's not going to be back as soon as people had hoped. And remember, you're missing your starting right tackle, right? That's the most veteran guy. You lost 4 other starters. So you're pretty much playing with a brand-new starting line. Now, Monroe Freeling came in last year and played some snaps and played a pretty good game at left tackle in this game. But for the most part, you got a brand-new offensive line out there, and you're playing Alabama in a slugfest. So when you take all those things into consideration, I'm not going to say that, you knew they were going to lose because I didn't know that. This looked like a typical Georgia script. They took the first punch. They fought back. It looked like Kirby's defense. They'd shifted into another gear. Alabama did not score in the second half. If you'd have told me that, I'd have pretty much guaranteed you a Georgia win. The Georgia offense, though, just off enough at key moments. 2 of 8 on 3rd downs. Alabama 13 and 19. Some timely play calling by Ryan Grubb. You got to give their first-year coordinator a lot of credit. This was probably his homework assignment the day that he got the job. Maybe should have spent a little more time on Florida State. But I guarantee he was spending a lot of time on Kirby Smart's defense, and it showed Saturday night.
All right, so I definitely want to talk about the run game. You touched on it a little bit. 227 rushing yards on 33 attempts. It was actually less attempts than Alabama. We saw Chauncey Bowens with probably the performance of the entire game. And I believe it was the last 10 matchups that Georgia and Alabama had played. The team with the most rushing yards has won that game. Yeah. This wasn't the case. I really thought if Georgia won the ground game that they would end up winning the game as a whole, and even though it didn't go that way, I mean, man, you have to feel good about the guys that you have in that room. But I do have to ask the question now of, with the Nate Frazier fumble not really coming back into the game, is he still running back 1, or is there somebody in this group that's more deserving of that?
Well, that's going to be determined at practice. I mean, Bowens showed you that he's capable of being running back 1. Nate's got to earn back that trust. Now, I don't know if he does it in the course of a week of practice, but whether he's the starter or whether he's not, it's really not a big deal. We know we're going to continue to see Nate Frazier because you got to manage these guys. It's a really long season, Kaylee.
All right, so this is the big picture question before we move on to talking about other SEC teams. based off of what you've seen from this Georgia team in a close win with Tennessee and a close loss to Alabama, can this team win a national championship?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the mark of Kirby Smart's teams has been to get better as the season progresses. That's going to be accentuated this year because of the youth of this team. Now, last year's team was a more veteran team, and it also had a lot of injuries. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it's better than a 50-50 shot, but is it possible? Absolutely. I think there's 4 or 5 SEC teams that are capable of winning a national championship if they continue to improve and the chips fall right. I still don't know enough about the Big Ten. You know, you got to throw the Big Ten factor in there. Dan Lanning's got it going on at Oregon. The Ohio State has a ton of talent, even though they've reloaded. They just snapped Washington's 22-game home win streak. So you know Ohio State's going to be in the picture, and Penn State may not be done yet either. So 3 potential championship teams out of the Big Ten. Probably, I'll dial it down a little bit. I'll say maybe 3 or 4 SEC teams. Alabama being one of them, with the way Ty Simpson's playing and those outstanding receivers, if they improve defensively. Georgia, of course. I think it's too early to count out Tennessee. You know, Joey Aguilar's playing really well. They survived on the road against Mississippi State. That's a big win. And then, of course, Ole Miss. And we'll have a chance to see them firsthand here in just a few weeks.
We'll get to all of those schools. I'm going to kind of cheat on my answer a little bit here, and I'm curious to hear your response. I don't think that this team can win a national championship at this point in time, but also I don't think that there's any team at this point that stands out as the front runner. It feels like everybody has a very obvious weakness, and it's been exposed. There are teams that are undefeated or teams that have one loss that look like they could be on the path to making the college football playoff, but there's not one team that feels like they're standing head and shoulders above everyone else right now. Maybe the only team that you could make that argument for is an Oregon or a Miami, but I'm not ready to buy in on those teams just yet at this point.
You're not ready to buy in on Carson Beck, Kaylee? Is that what you're saying?
I think that we'll see when they play Florida State how that works out. But,
next
you know,
week.
There's not a team to me that I'm like, you know what, yeah, they've got more talent, they're better coached, they look more complete. Just nobody seems super polished to me at this point in the season.
Right, and that's kind of the whole key to what you just said. Nobody has to win the national championship right now. Remember that. Nobody has to be undefeated right now. Notre Dame had lost to Northern Illinois at this stage last season.
That's right.
If you'd have told me they were going to go play for the national championship, I'd have told you were drinking too much leprechaun juice or something. I mean, teams change, teams evolve, and now that you've seen the transfer portal take effect, there's a lot of young guys that have to grow up quickly. The key is, can you survive and advance? Can you get to the playoff? It's really not about the regular season. Now, the regular season is still important, but we learned a valuable lesson last year. Ohio State finished in 4th place in the Big Ten. They lost to Oregon on the road, and they lost at home to Michigan. But they were a different team come playoff time because of the way they were able to grow together. This Georgia team, while they wouldn't seem stacked right now, we have seen some guys emerge. I don't think anybody was saying before the season they thought Chauncey Bowens was going to have a 100-yard game against Alabama, and he would have been the MVP of that performance. So you take a look at how he's grown. Chris Cole, he's got 3 sacks already. This is another guy whose role is going to continue to grow. The defensive line is starting to gel a little bit. The secondary is where Georgia's really got to get tuned up. That's probably been the most disappointing aspect is the cornerbacks. We thought going in that Georgia was 4 deep. Now Kaylee's asking me 4th week of the season who the second cornerback is. So to me, if there's a flashing red light, it's on Kirby Smart and his secondary coaches, safeties, and cornerbacks to get that secondary dialed in.
Well, the good news is it feels like everybody at this point has some flashing red light. We'll talk about some of those teams when we come back. For now, this is On the Beat. We'll be back after a short break.
And it's the first title in team history. Here it is, and lightning strikes twice, back-to-back championships. 3 in a row. They've done it again.
Where did those cheese come from? Relax. They're from Ingles.
Can I eat this now?
Okay, SEC play back in full swing with that. That means we get Mike's 30,000-foot view. All right, let's go ahead and get it kicked off with Ole Miss and LSU. Ole Miss gets the win, 24-19. Looks like Ole Miss has found some momentum under a new quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. Is it a matter of, okay, maybe we weren't looking enough at Ole Miss, or is maybe LSU not as good as we thought?
Well, I think that's just a classic game that probably could have gone either way. I mean, I still have questions about Ole Miss. They got to come through Georgia.
That's true.
And you remember the last time they came here, and you talk about a coach having another coach's number. I think Kirby Smart has a pretty good idea of what he's going to get from Lane Kiffin. I'm not sure that the LSU defense is what we thought that it was. Chambliss is a good quarterback, but I'm not sure that he's necessarily the long-term. He's a smaller guy. I'm not convinced that we've seen the last of Austin Simmons. I mean, it's great to have two quarterbacks, but the old saying, if you got two, you don't have one. So I'm still in wait-and-see mode on Ole Miss. Yeah, things could click, and yeah, they're a championship contender. We'll have an opportunity to see them in Sanford Stadium. That's a game they're going to have to win before I'm ready to tip my cap to Lane Kiffin this season.
What about Garrett Nussmeier, though? I mean, preseason, SEC first team. It's not like LSU's been putting points on teams, and that's been something that Brian Kelly has had to address is their margins of win. What do you think's been different with him this season, and is there still room for him to grow as the season progresses?
Yeah, I mean, big target on him coming in, and I was never completely sold on Nussmeier. I know that he had the most yards of everyone coming back, but, teams are geared up for LSU. And they're going to have to do a good job protecting him. He's not the most mobile of quarterbacks. Another guy that's not real big. LSU's got a tough schedule. They're not out of the hunt yet, though. I think Brian Kelly's a really good coach. I think there's a lot of potential on that LSU team. I think they really miss Whit Weeks. He got banged up in that game, and he's a guy that kind of plays with his hair on fire. And when you lose your defensive leader, it can have an effect. So not ready to count out LSU quite yet, but clearly, not in the top 10 right now. Just like Georgia, they fell out of the top 10. For the moment, at least.
You brought up Tennessee earlier in the show. They get the overtime win at Mississippi State. Does that change your perception of them at all?
Changes my perception of Georgia's trip to Starkville, I can tell you that.
I completely agree.
That's not a fun game before you play Texas while Texas has the week off. And, by the way, just because they didn't play, let's not forget about the Texas Longhorns. Yeah. They have a red carpet ride before they play Georgia when you look at who's on their schedule. Yes, they go to the Swamp this week. We'll see if Billy Napier can turn it around. Talk about coaching with your back to the wall. That's a really good Florida defense. That's going to be a really interesting game to see. I know Texas is a 2-touchdown favorite, but Ole Miss was a pretty big favorite going in there last year with a playoff spot on the line, and the Gators got them in the Swamp. That's a really hard place to play. So keep an eye on that game. But other than that, I think Texas has Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, and then they have a bye week before Georgia. There's another game in there that slips my mind at the moment, but it's not too daunting of a schedule. Afterward, I think they have Arkansas, and who knows what's going to happen with Arkansas now that Sam Pittman's gone and Bobby Petrino's in charge. But the bottom line and the point I'm trying to make is that Texas is a team that's still on the radar. They're still the second favorite to win the SEC. Alabama now the new odds-on favorite according to DraftKings.com. So that's another team to look at. You mentioned Tennessee. They've got some challenges ahead. The Tennessee-Alabama game, that's going to be really intriguing. I think that's a matchup. I think the winner moves on, and I think the loser probably falls out of the SEC championship game contention because Tennessee's already got the loss. And that would hand Alabama a conference loss as well. I think Tennessee's defense is going to have to shore up and get a lot better. I think they probably learned a lot about themselves on the road at Mississippi State. That's a big win when you win in this league. So those teams right now, Kaylee, another team you got to mention, let's get into Texas A&M.
100%. I was just going to ask because that is a team that Texas is going to have to play at the end. I feel like that could end up being really close. And they found their guy in Marcel Reed. But also with this Auburn team, they don't have the guys they need to protect Jackson Arnold at this point. They haven't looked good on the road. But even knowing that Georgia's going to Auburn, I don't feel any better about that game, even with Auburn's record so far at this point in the season. But I think Texas A&M may be a tough team for other teams to deal with as the season goes on, and maybe that's the one team we're not talking enough about.
Yeah, we'll see about A&M. They weren't as impressive against Auburn as I thought they should be. They do play Texas at the end, but it is in Austin, Texas. I think that's a pretty big advantage in that series. But Auburn, the news came out today that's going to be a night game. That's not good news for Georgia.
Not a surprise.
Auburn has a week off to prepare.
Yep.
Georgia played a Tennessee team that was trying like hell to snap a losing streak. What is it, 8 games, 9 games now? They had Tennessee, they had Georgia at home. They had it just like they wanted. Backs were to the wall. Georgia found a way. Guess what? They play an Alabama team that's already got one loss rolling in here. Talk about the head coach. Backs to the wall. Alabama got the win. Auburn with 2 losses, Hugh Freeze's future, they're going to put everything into that game. That's their season. If Auburn loses that game, lights out. They're not going to make the playoff. Season hopes are dashed. They're going to put everything into that game at Jordan-Hare. Georgia's schedule, it has not been a fortuitous schedule as far as when you draw these teams. I mean, having to play a Tennessee team that throws the ball like that, with a young secondary. That was one heck of a challenge. What a heck of a place for Gunnar Stockton to make his first road start. Somehow Dogs overcame that. The Alabama team, hungry. They get their starting running back, Jam Miller. We saw how effective he was. Ty Simpson playing as well as anybody in the country. Bad timing. Now you get Auburn in 2 weeks. So I think that what Georgia does this week against Kentucky is important. I think style points do matter. I think we're going to find out about that fire, passion, and energy. Georgia needs to take care of business at home against Kentucky like they typically do, get on track so they got some momentum going into Auburn, because right now, if you're Georgia, it's a 2-game season. Get the win, keep everybody healthy against Kentucky, and then go on to the Plains and play what's going to be a really determined Auburn team.
And we'll do a preview of that game here in a moment. I think my last thought on all of this is just the fact that we're in a very similar situation to where we were last year, especially Georgia coming out of that Alabama loss, where the SEC championship and the teams that will play for it, it could literally be anyone. Another team that we haven't talked about that could also be in contention for it, along with all the other ones that we've said, is Missouri. Missouri is one of those teams that kind of started off in that bottom middle and is slowly working their way up. Now, still early in the season, but they haven't dropped a game yet, and so it's just mass chaos is close to coming, and that's what it was last year with the SEC. We didn't know that Georgia was going to play until like a week or two before it actually happened, and so at this point, still anybody's ball game. But I'm excited to watch it go down.
Yeah, I hate to poke the Tiger here, but Damon Wilson with 3.5 sacks leads the Tigers. Boy, Georgia could have used some of that edge pressure against Alabama. That portal, it's brutal. It's a game changer.
All right, so in just a moment, we'll go ahead and take a look at that Kentucky game. We're going to take another short break. We'll be back.
Hey, DawgNation, it's Brandon Adams, the host of DawgNation Daily here at Cercheros. And when I'm ready to eat, I want to eat something that I feel like was made fresh for me. And that's what the friendly folks at Cercheros do each and every day. In fact, let me give you a little bit of a taste of what that looks like right now. So I'll do a flour tortilla with Southwest rice, black beans. May I have steak, please? Cheese, and some pico, and some corn. I would love that grilled, absolutely. Can't beat the taste of those fresh grilled toppings added on. Jalapenos, some guac. The guac is free. Free add-on here at Cercheros. And then I'll do some Cercheros sauce too, please. Looks great. And this football season, I want you to think of Cercheros for your tailgate watching and game day party need. In fact, this year, DawgNation with Cercheros is going to give away the ultimate game day party. You go to the website, DawgNation.com/tailgate. You can register for your chance to win the ultimate game day party, courtesy of Cercheros.
So one of the things that we heard Georgia players emphasize today is that it's no longer about last week, it's about what's ahead. And if they could play that game now, they said they would. But this week it's Kentucky, very different from the stakes and the tension of last week. Sleepy Saturday noon game. You're going against a way different offense. But the good news for Georgia is, number one, Kirby Smart has never lost to Kentucky. They've struggled on the road in Lexington, but they always seem to play this game way better at home.
Oh, there's no question. The home field's going to be big. But as far as saying the stakes are different, be careful, Kaylee. If Georgia loses this game, the stakes get pretty real.
That's true.
You know, as Gene Stallings used to say, you don't think it's a big game, just lose one. You find out how big it gets quickly. But, yes, this is a game that Georgia should win. Now, Kentucky does have a really good offensive line, and Mark Stoops is a guy that's known for power football. Him and Kirby Smart have a lot of the same philosophies when it comes to running the football. And if Georgia gets into a smash-mouth, low-scoring game, you don't want these guys to stick around. Zach Calzada, a guy that got injured earlier in the year, could return for this game, but I think that status is a little unclear at the time of this show. Not much of a backup quarterback there. This is a game Georgia should win and should win handily. This game is about Georgia. This game is about execution. This game is about guys growing up, leaders stepping up, and playing with the same sort of physicality that we've become accustomed to. Fortunately for Georgia, I don't think Kentucky is much of a threat to beat their secondary or beat them with the pass game. The only way Kentucky could win this game is if they're able to out-smash mouth football Georgia. I just don't see that happening. So I think what Kirby Smart's going to want to do is build a lead, get a fast start. That's going to be a big emphasis. He talked about that this week. They trailed 21-7 to Tennessee in the first quarter, 14-0 against Alabama. I think Kirby wants to get a little bit of a lead, get some guys in there. He's got to continue to build depth. Who knows, maybe you throw Ryan Puglisi out there for a series at some point if you can get up by a couple touchdowns. To me, this is a real get-right game for Georgia. They must take advantage of this, again, Kaylee, because that Auburn game on the road, the Dogs are going to have to really be on point.
But, I mean, Kirby Smart, Mark Stoops, they're friends. He shouted him out for how long he's been a head coach at Kentucky. And then, of course, he mentioned the physicality that Kentucky plays with. And this is what Kirby Smart had to say about Kentucky's offense.
Physical. Their backs are physical. I mean, every time we play them, their offensive line, they have a defensive head coach, Coach Stoops, that believes in running the ball, and they have really good run schemes, and they have really big physical guys, and their backs match their O-line in terms of size, both backs.
So I'll look into the numbers more later this week when we have our DawgNation pregame, but I did just notice right away that Kentucky running back Seth McGowan is averaging 96.7 yards per game, which is second in the SEC. So they've got a guy that they like to turn to. The quarterback status is unclear. The backup quarterback Cutter Boley, who played last week, just 10 of 19 with 124 yards. No touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. So I feel like what we're going to see from Kentucky on Saturday is just going to be dependent of the quarterback situation. I'm with you. I think style points are a big part of this game, but also, too, for some of the young guys who have had moments where it felt like it was really catastrophic, I think just getting some confidence back against an opponent like Kentucky is going to be really big for a young team.
Offensive and defensive confidence. I mean, you look at the way the targets were spread out last week, it was pretty much Zach Branch and Colby Young. You know that Kirby Smart's going to want to get this tight end room going. You know, it's been a minute since the Georgia tight ends have been a factor in the game. Oscar Delp doing a nice job blocking, but we know that he can catch the ball. We know Lawson Lucky was a guy that we thought at the start of the year that could be an impact player. We know Jaden Riddell is another guy who has the potential to be explosive. If you can get these guys going. London Humphrey, he was only targeted once in this last game. Remember, he was the hero against Tennessee. This is another guy that you want to get going. So Georgia with a lot of talent on the perimeter and tight ends that if possible, you want to get this game going. Yes, Georgia can run the ball effectively, but in Kirby's world, he wants that run to set up some of those deep passes, and he wants the receivers to catch the ball when Gunnar Stockton hits him in stride.
Yeah, so this is one of those games where I feel like Georgia can make a lot of progress because what you said earlier, you've got Auburn on the road ahead, then you come back and you've got Ole Miss, then you go into the bye week, and I know that people don't look at Kentucky as some prestigious opponent like in Alabama or the same way that they view Tennessee, but this is a really competitive Kentucky team that in turn can make Georgia better on the other side of the field, that way that they can progress, and maybe we can see a better, more complete version of not just the Georgia defense, but also Georgia offense moving forward, too.
Yeah, I think so. And get Gunnar Stockton some confidence. I mean, I thought he threw the ball well in this game. Again, he's not turning it over. He's doing a really nice job with his ball security. Spread it out. Get some new receivers involved. Go back to Talon Taylor this game. It's one thing to say you believe him, and it's another thing to actually believe in him and give him the ball. You put the kid under the lights, under pressure. He failed. You got to come back to him right away. Get him involved. This guy's obviously got the speed to get open. You know, there's something to be said for the fact that he got himself that open and in position to make the play. Now he's got to make it. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see him make those plays. Noah Thomas, he's on a milk carton somewhere. You know, there's a reason you went out and paid for this guy and got him from A&M. You got to get this guy involved. I mean, he's a 6'5" target. Kirby made it sound like it was just unfortunate he wasn't in there when they threw the ball. He plays the same spot as Colby Young. You got to get Noah Thomas involved, and you got to preserve your players. Part of the reason why Georgia spreads it out and is so effective getting better as the season progresses is they play a lot of guys. This year we have seen the growing pains. Typically they've gotten away with it. They've slipped this guy in, that guy in, a little bit of less experience here, a little bit less experience there. Typically don't get hit as hard as they did with mistakes as they did against Alabama. But there's so many new guys, Kaylee. The percentages go up when you're playing that many young guys that they're going to make mistakes. And the way the schedule fell against that particular Alabama team on that night with Ty Simpson playing like that, it was just too much to overcome.
All right, so I know you guys are probably tired of hearing it at this point. This is my final thought from all of this, is the fact that, yes, same situation as last year, coming out of that loss. As a Georgia fan, I know for you guys, it must have felt awful to see another loss to Alabama, but at the end of the day, it never even mattered. Georgia still made it to the SEC championship, won the SEC championship, went to the playoff. Alabama did it. We're in this new age of college football where it's just like the NFL, where one loss really doesn't matter so much in the moment. Yeah, it helps you out in the long run, but at the end of the day, one loss isn't a killer for the season. So it's all about looking ahead. And the first step along the way to that is playing Kentucky on Saturday at noon.
I got a question for you, Kaylee.
Oh, gosh.
Would you rather have 2 national championships since 2020 or beat Alabama a couple times?
I mean,
I don't remember who Tom Brady lost to. I really don't.
Yeah.
I remember championships,
Yeah.
and that's what Kirby Smart has built this program on. And, yeah, it stinks to lose to a rival. Ask Tennessee about that. Ask anybody else in the SEC but Alabama about that. Kirby Smart has owned this league, and there's a pretty good chance, I believe, that if Georgia wins out in the regular season, that they'll get to see Alabama again in the SEC championship game. And even if they don't win out and Alabama doesn't win out, there's still that chance they'll get another swipe at Alabama in the postseason come playoffs.
And you know what? Thanks to the SEC, Georgia has to go right back to Alabama last year. So
That's
you get
not a
another
bad
chance
thing.
at 'em.
That's not a bad thing, because if there's one thing we know, us in the media knows about Kirby Smart, he's combative. He's coming back at you, man. I don't want to be on the wrong side of Kirby, and Alabama's not going to want to be on the wrong side of Kirby either. Next year's Georgia team, we can say this for the preview, but the reality of it is you better get Georgia now, because a lot of these guys are young. A lot of these guys are going to be coming back, and
now
there's a
they're
lot
gonna
of good guys
remember.
coming in, and there's a portal out there too.
They're going to remember what it felt like. All right,
bet.
guys, that's it for us here on the Beat. I'm Kaylee Mansell with Mike Griffith. We'll see you right back here next Monday at 7 o'clock.